Hello, and thank you for being here today. I wanted to talk about New Year's resolutions and pretend clean sheets of paper. I have a real thing about inventing reasons to start with a fresh sheet of paper. And I think New Year's is a great time to do that. We're right in the swing of this new year. And many of us will have made New Year's resolutions, and most of us will have already failed at them. And that's the thing about a New Year's resolution. It's pretty contrived, and it's not based on the way our bodies and our brains work and change. So I find a more helpful approach, rather than making kind of ambit claims to myself that I'm going to do this thing differently or completely reinvent myself in this way. I prefer to think about how I want to feel in a year, how I want to feel throughout the year, but also at the end of the year, to make sure that I'm focused on what's most important to me and what's most meaningful to me at that point in my life, whatever that is. So often I'll come up with just one word, and sometimes the one word comes very, very easily, and other times it's a bit of a struggle to figure out exactly what that one word means. I also like words, so I think I get a bit precious about which word and what. But like resolutions, if you pick a word and it isn't really meaningful to you, it doesn't really capture the essence of how you want to be for that period of time, then you'll let it drop. It'll just fall over and you won't refer back to it. Really what we're looking for is some kind of guiding principle, so that when things get tough, as they inevitably do in life, or when we have opportunities presented to us, which also happens, what are we using to make our decisions about those things? And if we already know our values, and anyone who knows me knows that that's such a thing for me, that with every client we work with, we get them to do a values inventory and look at what are the most important, guiding principles in your life, not just in this year. So once you know what those things are, and they do change and evolve over time, then the one word is really a way of having a touch point with yourself, to know this is a good thing for me to do, or I'm not doing enough of the thing that I wanted to do. It's a way of connecting in with yourself and prioritizing connecting with meaning, making sure that you're focusing on the stuff that matters most to you. So if you have gotten partway into the new year and found that you've already broken your New Year's resolutions, please do not feel like a failure. It's really human nature. They don't really work the vast majority of the time. If you really want to change something, you should be looking at the small 1%er habit changes that you can add up over time, like compound interest. And all of our programs have the 1%ers, as we call them, built in to what we're doing, so that we're not at the start of anything, whether it's coaching program or leadership development. We're not at the start saying, in 6 months or 12 months, there's going to be a complete revolution in my life or my leadership. We can see where we're going, but we're working it backwards into very small changes. And the changes that we want to look at aren't surface changes. The things that we want to think about are our beliefs more than anything, which then drive our behaviours. And those behaviours are what get us our outcomes. So if, for example, you want to get healthier this year, or you've never run and you want to run 5 kilometres, part of what you need to do, and if you've read Tiny Habits or James Clear's book, anything on habits, they'll say the same things, which are ultimately we need to have an identity change. So if you don't see yourself as a runner, you need to get to a place where you can see yourself as a runner. Your identity has shifted. Your belief has shifted that you can run, and that if you run, even if it's 5 steps, you're a runner. You're running. And so it goes with any change in your life. What's the underlying belief that's keeping you from leading a brilliant, lit up life? What's getting in your way? What's keeping you small? What are the things that you wish you could change about yourself? Often when we're working with clients, we talk to them about the stories they have about themselves. And the example I often give is running. So I grew up in a family and a school that told me I was not sporty, but my brother was. And a lot of the reason for that, I think, was that if we had to do school sports on the weekend, it was far too hard to get two kids around. So getting my older brother around to sport felt like more than enough on a Saturday morning. So me not being sporty was hugely convenient because I could sit in the car and eat a meat pie while he was playing football or whatever the equivalent was. But what happened was over time, I met people who happened to be into running and other things. And it kind of happened by chance. I stepped in to help somebody who had signed up to a business mini triathlon, and they'd trained, but they needed 3 people, 1 for each leg, a bike, a swim, and a run leg. And one of them had dropped out. And if I didn't sub in, then they wouldn't be able to compete. And I am a sucker for people not being able to do what they want to do. So I really, without much thought, said that I would step in and do this one bike leg, which didn't sound too hard, except I had a very, very old mountain bike and really wasn't a very good cyclist. So I was probably the funniest person at the race because everyone else had amazing, fast, speedy, sexy bikes, and I could barely move the pedals around on mine. But what it did was expose me to something that I'd never been exposed to before. I just hadn't had the experience of really competing, of being at an event and a race where people were pushing their potential and going for a goal physically. And I got addicted. So I started from there training with a group of people and eventually ended up running a marathon. And the point of this story is I'd spent over 30 years of my life telling myself I am not a runner. So I want you to ask yourself, what are you saying that you're not? What are the stories that you have, the beliefs that you have about yourself, the things that you just rule out and say, that's not who I am, I can't do that? Because often that's where the gold is. And the thing about becoming a runner, whatever that means for me, was that it just opened up a window in my brain. And I realized if I've told myself for over 30 years that that's just not who I am and I can't do that, and it turns out that's wrong, what else am I telling myself that I can't do, that I'm ruling out, that I'm saying I'm just not that I could try, that I might love? So looking at your New Year's resolutions, looking at your goals for the year, thinking about what one word would you have as your guiding principle. Also think about your beliefs that are going to drive your behaviours and whether you reach those goals or not. And the stories you have about yourself, about who you are, what you are, and what you're not. I would love to hear your resolutions if you have them, even if you've failed them miserably, what some of those beliefs are that you'd like to reframe and update, better stories for yourself, bit of an upgrade, and whether you've got one word that's your guiding light for the year. Chat to me in the comments, send me a DM. I'd love to hear from you.